How you doing, everybody? Vasu Vaddiparty, Casey Freelove. This is a Make the Money and Run podcast for Friday, May 28th, 2022. A good Memorial Day weekend to everybody coming up on this podcast. We're talking NBA playoffs. How about those Lakers? A 7 seed? Are you sure they're a 7 seed? Sure look like the 1 or 2 seed after yesterday. The Denver Nuggets get a lot of credit from me. An undermanned Denver Nuggets stuff going to Portland and beat them outright, not only covering the 4 points but winning. Major League Baseball, we got some games going on right now. Cubs lead the Reds 1-0. All the Major League Baseball talk. The Tampa Bay Rays have all of a sudden gotten into first place, and the Dodgers' domination of the Giants go on. And in potpourri, we'll talk about a special young man who's going to graduate from high school on June 5th. So it's a special story, and on this Memorial Day weekend with all the bad stuff for the last 2 years, this is a good story to talk about. And then we'll also have some NFL news as well. Charlie on assignment. I'm Vasu Vaddiparty. He's Casey Freelove. How you doing, Casey?
Hey, I'm doing well. Let me start here, my friend, and welcome into everybody. We're, of course, based in the Golden State of California, and breaking within the last hour, sports betting voter initiative, which has been promoted by California's Native American tribes and limited mainly to their casinos, has qualified officially for the November ballots. This is very exciting news in a state that has been long overdue to get this going. Vasu, I want to get your take on it, but also wanted to mention that this will be brick and mortar betting only. You will have to go to a tribal property in order to place your bets, whereas mobile wagering has kind of taken over the country. Everybody likes to have their phone and the convenience of it. But as somebody who's lived here for most of my life and also lived in Las Vegas, I think it's about time. One other wrinkle to this, Vasu, it's only limited to the tribal properties. They are not going to let the California card rooms get involved. So that's where the stickiness is going to come into play, because you've got a lot of money coming out of both industries. But hey, 3-day weekend, holiday, we're all in a good mood, and that makes me pretty happy to report.
Well, whenever this comes in, I just hope gas prices are below $4 at the time that comes in, because I could be making a lot of trips back and forth as I do to Tahoe and Reno. So we'll see how that goes. Catch us every Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific, right here on Facebook and on YouTube. If you miss any of the live broadcasts, including our pick segment, first of all, you shouldn't miss that live, but download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts, on Apple and Spotify and the rest of them, anywhere you get your podcasts. We're powered by Stables Media. Check out stablesmedia.com for all our different shows, as well as if you're interested in getting into podcasting, check out stablesmedia.com, contact them, and get going with your own podcast, because we know after the last 2 years, Casey, a lot of people have things to say, apparently.
Well, that's the beauty of podcasting and the internet and the freedom of speech. You know, I'm surprised we haven't been marked yet for language, but we've done a pretty good job keeping it PG rated, I'd say.
I say PG rated because the standards go a little bit lower each year as we get going. All right, that's how you get a hold of us. That's how you can find us on Stables Media. Thanks to everybody on YouTube and on Facebook for watching and comments. Big Memorial Day weekend coming up, and that usually means a lot of NBA playoffs, a lot of baseball. We're going to talk a little hockey today, or at least I will. Game 7 tonight. And when it comes to Game 7s, that's when I get really excited about hockey in the playoffs. We'll get to that in a second. Here are the NBA lines as we get to tonight's games. Atlanta is 5 and 2-11. That series tied at 1. Knicks down double digits the other day on Wednesday night, and yet they come back, not only win, but also cover 101-92 against the Hawks. Trae Young had a good game. The New York Knicks defense showed up in Game 2. 2-11 the total, -5 for Atlanta. Series tied at 1. The Brooklyn Nets, Kyrie Irving is going to make his first playoff return back to Boston since leaving the Celtics 2 seasons ago. They're an 8.5-point favorite at Boston. Boston's not that bad to be an 8.5-point underdog, but the way they played this year and the way this series has gone, it's going to be pretty tough for Boston to come back. Irving, obviously the newsmaker in that story, but the Nets and their offense, 227 the total. Brooklyn up 2-0 in the series lead. Here's the one for me that I cannot believe. The Dallas Mavericks have a 2-0 series lead over the Clippers, who have struggled. Clippers have definitely underperformed against the Mavericks. Mavericks are a good team, not taking anything away from the Dallas Mavericks. They played well. But this is the Clippers. Everybody thought they were going to get to the conference finals, play the Lakers, and maybe even have a chance to go on. They have not had any continuity this year. Tyronn Lue has had a tough time dealing with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, not from a personal standpoint, but from a playing standpoint. Yet the Clippers, Casey, are favored by 2.5 in Game 3 of 219.5 the total. Let's start with that game, because I'm fascinated by the fact the Dallas Mavericks are an underdog at home And it's, 219.5, that's normal for playoffs. I get it. But Dallas is up 2 games tonight after dominating a +6 last Saturday and a +7 last Wednesday. And here they are still not getting any respect by the odds makers. What's your take, Casey?
Yeah, it's a tale of two teams. One is in a tailspin, and that is the Clippers, who are 4-6 now in their last 10. Meanwhile, the Mavericks are surging at 8-2. And maybe they're just a cursed franchise, Vasu. I mean, they've never won anything. They've always been the little brother to the Lakers. They always will be, even if they win the title this year. They're just not as popular down there. I mean, we both know plenty of people in Los Angeles, and they rarely want to talk about the Clippers when we're talking NBA basketball. I don't know if it's coaching, if it's lapses in defensive intensity, or maybe the fact that the Mavericks are just really surging and playing pretty well. Tim Hardaway's shooting it good from outside. Luka Doncic is just all world at this point, and they've been a big surprise because, unfortunately, this guy, if you were watching last week, said that the one series I thought you could hammer was the Clippers as a huge -400 favorite to eliminate the Mavericks, and I'm certainly kind of left holding the bag right now unless LA steps up. I think this point spread, to get to your initial point, is just based on what they think the public's going to do. I'll have to pull up OddsShark and see where the consensus money is as far as the game right now. But I think if you're just looking at it logically on paper, this is supposed to be a close series. It should not be 3-0 in favor of the lower seed. So I guess they've got to set a number where they can ensure that they're going to get money going both ways. The total's also kind of interesting as well because there hasn't been as much offense as maybe as we thought coming into this particular series. So this is definitely a watchable game tonight. I think I like the Clippers, but again, they just seem like they're snake bit. I can't really put my finger on what's gone wrong because on paper, they should have a little bit better team. And I don't know if Luka's the difference. We talked about whether Porzingis was going to be healthy or not and, contributing to the team. He's done that. They've been coached very well, and they're dangerous right now, bottom line.
It'll be interesting to see the Dallas Mavericks, again, a 2.5-point underdog. They have a 2-game-to-none series lead. The next 2 games, I assume, today and Sunday for Dallas and the Clippers. Clippers got to get it going in order to make it serious because if they lose tonight, it's pretty much over. You see the National League odds at the bottom. We'll get to baseball later on, a couple of interesting baseball stories. Let's go back to Brooklyn, 8.5, 227, Casey, for tonight. 8.5 points on the road is a lot in the NBA, and it's a lot on the playoffs. Unless it's a 3-0 series lead, I can't understand why it's 8.5. I still think Boston is good enough to cover 8.5, but that Nets offense is really good defensively. They started to play well. Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker have not had good series. Obviously, they've had double-digit leads in the first quarter, second quarter in both those games. Or they've had leads. I remember Game 1 was a double-digit lead for the Celtics. But here comes the Brooklyn offense. Durant getting 25 a game. Kyrie Irving playing well. James Harden, obviously an MVP candidate. They going into the playoffs. They were 25-8 since he joined the Nets. So he's been the difference maker from a winning standpoint. What do you make of the Brooklyn Nets, and what do you think about the reception Kyrie Irving is going to get in Boston tonight? Because I kind of think Boston's going to cover.
I could see him covering. I'm not sure they're going to win, but the story of this week is bad fan behavior, and I just have a sinking feeling we're going to see some of that in Boston tonight. Now, Danny Ainge has come out today and said, look, I don't understand what Kyrie Irving's talking about as far as, expecting to hear, let's just say, not family-friendly language directed towards him when he gets there. I mean, the guy played hard when he was there. Maybe they're a little bitter about the way that he left, but I think this is a good matchup. The Nets are just on fire, man. I mean, they've even gone down as far as the money you get back. They're commanding plus 190 to win the whole thing. And we said it before the playoffs started. If they play up to their potential, they're probably the best team in the Eastern Conference. Now, the Philadelphia 76ers might have something to say about that. And I know we'll talk about that series a little bit later. But as far as Boston having the ability tonight to cover, I can totally see that. I mean, it's a really high line, man. I know they're doing it because Brooklyn's looked so dominant basically this season, and the Celtics are under 500 against Eastern Conference performers, so that's a problem. You mentioned Kemba Walker needing to step it up a little bit, and the big three for Brooklyn has just done a great job. By the way, Boston 2-8 in their last 10 games heading into this series, and if you are a series better at home, the Nets are minus 10,000 right now. If you want to bet them to win the series, if you're feeling feisty and you think the Celtics can claw back, you're getting plus 2,000. So, if you got $10 hanging around, you want to turn it into 200, give it a shot. I don't think they're going to win the series, but I certainly think they could cover tonight. And the bottom line is, Vasu, we need as fans some good series because we're in danger. I mean, we've seen the Bucks just boat race the Heat. That hasn't even been enjoyable to watch. The Lakers-Sun series has gotten cheaper because of the injury, excuse me, to CP3, which is very unfortunate, the timing on that. And I know we're going to go in depth with that series, but the NBA needs eyes on it. And the way to do that is to put fans back in the seats. That's step one. Step two is to have some competitive series. And thus far, we're still kind of searching outside of the Hawks, Knicks, and maybe Blazers, Nuggets.
We'll get to the NBA notes in a second, but let's talk about this last game. The Atlanta Hawks, a 5-point favorite over the Knicks, 211 the total. Atlanta got the Trae Young game winner in game one on Sunday night, and then the Knicks were down double digits as even as late as the third quarter. And yet, defensively, we're able to come back and make stops and come back and not only win the game, but cover. The defense stopped Trae Young, stopped Herter, stopped all the necessary components of the Atlanta Hawks to tie that series at 1-1. Here we are in Game 3 tonight, 211 the total. Usually Atlanta totals are in the 220s at the lowest or the 230s, depending on who they're playing, but it's 211 right now. At home, Atlanta can score. Knicks defense. You got to think that total is going to be a little iffy going into the game tonight. But what's your take on the Knicks? Thibodeau and his defense, ever since he's come in, they're the 4th seed in the East, and nobody would have thought that.
Nobody would have thought it. Here's the bottom line. They've got to get a little more production out of Julius Randle on a consistent basis because Randle and Rose are really the only two guys that scare you. I think RJ Barrett needs to step up his game a little bit. I'm not saying they're not playing hard on defense, and that is one of the keys to winning in the playoffs. So I like what they've done on defense. But there's something about this Hawks team. They just reek of that young confidence, like almost arrogance, not knowing, hey, this is our first year in the playoffs, and Lord knows how long, just like the Knicks. Trae Young obviously has a huge chip on his shoulder after some of that disgusting behavior that took place at the Garden, including a fan spitting on him. Thank God they got that guy on tape, and he will never be at a Knicks game again. But I think this series has the potential to probably go the distance. The one thing I wonder about, and I want to get your thoughts on this, the nerves of playing at home, where they've been amazing this year. 25-11 are the Hawks in Georgia this year. But the pressure of having more fans in the stands than you've had accustomed, I think, Vasu, that's why this total is so low. I think there's going to be nerves that play into this game, especially in the first half with two teams that don't really have any playoff experience, save for a couple of players on their team.
I'll be surprised if the nerves happen at home because these are home fans that are rooting for them, so it'll be a little different from that standpoint. And these are not guys that are rookies, so even 2 years ago or 3 years ago, they had fans in the stands now. But this is the first playoff appearance for the Hawks in a long time, so maybe that's the scenario that they're looking at from a nerve standpoint. Is not only are they playing back in front of fans, but they're also playing in their first playoff series in the Trae Young era. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. All right, you mentioned it. Let's get to the NBA notes here in a second. The ugliness of the NBA fans, Utah. I don't know what goes on in Utah. They're such nice people. And then Russell Westbrook getting popcorn dumped on him. And I know he reacts badly and he goes after people. And that probably exacerbates the problem a little bit too. But, I mean, it was only popcorn, but it still should not happen. And then, of course, you mentioned Trae Young getting spit on. Kyrie Irving returning to Boston. See the reaction of how that goes. We talked about the Clippers being in trouble. The Hawks in Atlanta. Milwaukee 3-0 in a snoozer of a series, and then Denver 2-1 over Portland with that big win. An undermanned Denver team. I'm really impressed with the Nuggets. And here we were about ready to bury them about 2-3 weeks ago without Jamal Murray and without Monty Morris and without the guys that they have. But this Argentinian rookie, Falco Campazzo, had a great game last night, and Jokic came up big at the end. That tip shot at the end really turned that around. And then the Lakers, clearly not a number 7 seed going to the playoffs case. The Lakers are not a number 7 seed. They've got everybody healthy. Phoenix made a good run, but this might be where it goes. And, of course, having CP3 hurt and the bad shoulder, it's probably not going to help him as going into it. And then, of course, Donovan Mitchell didn't play in Game 1, Casey. He came back for Game 2. They took over Memphis. But I'm still not sold on Utah being a 5-point favorite on the road tomorrow night in Memphis because Memphis does play well at home. So let's get to the NBA. Let's take your overall grasp of the situation. Start with the ugliness of the fans. I mean, what's wrong with people, Casey?
Between you and me, we've literally been to thousands of games in our life. Like, I'm talking thousands. That's how long we've been in this sport, into sports. I just can't understand it. I mean, to actually say this is why it's happening, I don't know if it's because we've all been pent up in our homes for a year and you're finally getting a chance to get back out there, at the games. But I've never been a guy to say anything more evil than maybe you suck once, because I understand that there are children around. The game needs children to be interested, to be involved. And some of the things that we have seen have just been I mean, just so disappointing and not shocking, by the way, the markets they're coming out of. It's kind of the same culprits that we talk about year in and year out. New York, Boston. I mean, those are places that they've had problems in the past. A little bit, just saying, a little bit. And to see Trae Young have to deal with that, I know I touched on it earlier. That one really just kind of pissed me off, quite frankly. I understand Russell might have overreacted a little bit. The problem is Russell has not had any good fan interactions his whole career. In fact, just today, a Utah court dismissed the lawsuit that was brought against Westbrook by a veteran who was in the stands and got after it with him in 2019. So he's no stranger to fans disliking him. And that's what's going to happen when you're a triple-double machine and a very talented player. People are going to give you a bunch of crap. I've heard a lot of things about the Utah fans as well, and that's so interesting. You're right. It's such a nice state, and people seem so polite and, very down to earth, very family oriented. But once that building opens up, they just seem to kind of unleash just filth on top of some other fans. So, Vasu, it's not a good look. And I know, we've covered it in different ways as far as, I've been a media member with a press credential where you just have to be absolutely silent. I mean, your job basically involves doing that. But I, as a fan who have been to a game many times and, maybe had a few too many beers, I'm just not into fighting with other people in the stands, saying derogatory things to the players, especially if there's kids around. I can't really figure out why specifically this is coming up right now. And I have a feeling, my friend, we have not seen the last of this in the NBA playoffs. I think it could get ugly.
Never going to go. This is never going to go in. I just don't understand what fan behavior is. There's a personality that was out here for years and years and years, and his theory was always like, how bad is your life that you have to go take it out at the stadium? You're once a week where you get to be big man on campus and show off in front of others. Don't forget we had the Dodgers-Houston incident the other night between the fans as well, too. That's going to go on for a little bit until people get over it. I'm over 2017, everybody. I didn't play in the game. I'm over the series. It's fine. Houston won the series under whatever circumstances. And then the other thing is social media, and this is a kid-friendly statement. It's maybe so, but I say it is very impressive how some people can type with one hand only while their other hand is below their desk. So that I will just leave it at that, and you can visualize your own. Picture on that. But basically, that's it. It's easy to be tough when you're amongst other people in your own home park or at your home in front of your computer. And I think that ugliness has to stop. I remember I was trying to think of who the first incident was in Utah, and it was Russell Westbrook, and he does kind of bring it on himself. I remember the kid pulled at his jersey, and that shouldn't happen either. That's parenting. You can't touch a player when you're at the court, even if you got courtside seats. If they fall into you, that's one thing. You assume the risk. And then this Trae Young thing, I mean, spitting on people, that's just disgusting. We're in COVID, for one thing. Forget anything else. We're in COVID. Who knows how that goes? If I was Trae Young, I don't care what the fine would have been. I would have gone and beaten the ass out of that guy for spitting on me. That is not acceptable behavior, and I do not understand why people act that way at stadiums. I see it all the time. I am so happy sometimes that I'm a media member that I do not have to sit amongst the masses and watch this ugly behavior, and I can just be in a press box and just watch the game from up there without being bothered. Yeah, I can't root for my team, but you know what? I'll take those circumstances any day than listening to crap that comes out of people's mouths, especially people that think they know so much. Casey?
Well, and I know we're talking basketball here, but let's stick with this bad fan behavior because we're not even talking about like just bad fan behavior in Houston with the Dodger fans and the Astros fans. We're talking about irresponsible parenting where you could have called Child Protective Services. I'm sure a lot of folks have seen the video, but basically a man and a woman had their young infant daughter with them. The guy is just throwing haymakers and just beating the crap out of this other fan in the stands. His wife comes over to try and get a cheap shot in. Thankfully, a fan that was in the row ahead of them realized what was going on and the peril that the young girl was facing. They grabbed her out of her seat and literally lifted her over to a safer area because mom and dad are busy beating the crap out of other people. This is insane, dude. I mean, I've seen a couple of fights at baseball games, but as you said, go to COVID, go to health. You should not be touching each other right now. You should not be throwing fists. And that other guy that got bloodied up, I mean, what a mess. I would be absolutely horrified if I was anywhere within 30 feet of that. And I don't know who to blame, whether it's Astros security, but you've been to a lot of baseball games. I know you cover the Giants quite a bit. It seems to me security's on point when you're in San Francisco. Why did it take like 5 minutes for one single female security officer to get over there and break this up? As you know, at the concourse, they've got security people at each concourse all the way around, along with ushers. This should not have happened like that.
I don't know what's going on. I mean, we don't want to spend the show talking about that, but let's go, fans. Let's step it up. We're all in a generation now where we're gone through all this together. Let's be kind to one another. We say that all the time. All right, as far as the rest of the series tomorrow, Casey, Milwaukee 3-0 on Miami. I mean, it's been a snooze. I didn't think Miami had a chance. I certainly didn't think it was going to be as big a blowout as it was yesterday between the Bucks. But the Bucks seem like I don't know whose logo in the NBA has an elephant, but we know the Oakland A's have an elephant. They certainly do not have a short memory when it comes to what happened in the bubble last year with the Milwaukee Miami series, and they are taking it to the Heat. Now the Heat haven't played well; they've been injured, but Milwaukee has turned it on. They had a bad first game; they didn't cover that game, but since then it's been all Milwaukee. Their defensive efficiency is probably right around 100, which is really good in today's NBA. And then Philadelphia, Washington, they didn't cover the first one, but they did dominate for most of the game, and Washington got a run late in the game. But they totally tore apart Washington in game two, and I foresee the same 6-point favorite going into Saturday. Denver, we talked about. The Lakers, we talked about. Then Utah, Memphis. What do you think about Utah, Memphis? I'm kind of interested in that because I can see Memphis winning game three and putting a little pressure on the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, it's interesting that Vegas still has Utah as a pretty commanding favorite with the series tied at 1 game apiece and shifting over to Memphis. The Jazz are minus 625 to capture that series. If you like what the Grizzlies are doing, you'll get back plus 425. And I told you before the playoffs started, I've not watched a lot of Memphis Grizzlies basketball this year. They're just not the type of team that gets on national TV quite a bit. But I really like what I've seen out of them. They're very good distributing the ball. They played some really nice defense against one of the offensive powerhouses of the league in the Jazz. And I think that they've got a fighting chance. I think that Vegas had a very tough time setting that line because you had to favor Utah, but 5 just seems a little steep. That total at 224, interesting as well. If you're curious, though, the early betting trends out of Las Vegas, 93% of the public is on Utah minus 5. And you know what I say about when 90% of the money is going somewhere? Las Vegas does not like to pay 90% of the people that bet on a game. Something to keep in mind if you're looking at that particular series. And I don't know, the Jazz, maybe it's the pressure of being the number 1 seed. They've got a great coach. They've got great players. Some of their players have not maybe played up to their great potential just yet, but in theory, they should be much better. And I think this goes back to something we've talked about in the past, and we'll talk about as long as there is a wild card. Teams that are already in elimination mode down the stretch, whether it's Major League Baseball or now the new format of the NBA with these play-in games, they are playing at a high level coming in. It's not your typical 1 versus 8 matchup where you just say, all right, 4-game sweep and let's move on. Memphis truly believes they can win this, Vasu, and if they pick up a victory tomorrow and go up 2-1, there's no reason to think that they can't make this a 7-game series.
Are we looking at the Utah Jazz because Utah is not a name team and not a lot of people watch the Utah Jazz? People don't know who they are. They are the best team in the Western Conference record-wise. But are they getting the respect, or are we thinking about the Utah Jazz because nobody follows them? They don't get a lot of social media cracks, not a lot of national TV. They're not even in any of the good time slots on TV. This weekend they're playing late on Saturday night, 9:30 on the East Coast, 7:30 in Utah. That's a normal game time for them, but that's not the prime time spot. So is it because people don't have a lack of respect for Utah, or is it because they just don't know?
I think it's a combination of both, but if you've watched, I mean, you and I have watched the Jazz a little bit this year. I mean, obviously we have the NBA League Pass, so we can watch whatever team we want, but everything you said plays into it. Even if they won the NBA championship, they're never going to be the most popular team. They're the smallest market in all of basketball, and I think a lot of people just don't know about them. I mean, if you ask a casual basketball fan, what do you know, Utah Jazz, what comes to mind? They'll probably say dummy Rudy Gobert rubbing his COVID mitts all over the microphone when the entire NBA shut down. He's kind of the face of the NBA shutdown, if you will. And that almost ripped apart his relationship with Donovan Mitchell, who they absolutely need to play at a high level to pick up victories. But I believe in Quinn Snyder, and I really think that they're going to find a way to right the ship. I just don't know about these inflated point spreads on the road. I mean, you're looking at 2 games. We're talking about the Bucks and the Heat. Milwaukee's a 5-point favorite in Miami. I kind of feel like if the Heat are going to make one last stand, that 5 seems pretty good to me. Or maybe you even tease both these, take both home dogs, tease that bad boy up a few points, and sit back and relax and enjoy.
It's going to be an interesting NBA weekend. We'll get our picks out at the end. Major League Baseball has an interesting weekend as well, too. Charlie O on assignment, Vasu Vaddiparty, Casey Freelove here. Catch us Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays, 4:15, 1:15 East, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific, Facebook and YouTube. Download, subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Thanks to everybody on Facebook. Robbie, we see you out there. Appreciate it. Yeah, you're right. Let's go. Memorial Day weekend this weekend as well, too. So a lot of things going on. Lori, thanks for sending the like on the Facebook page as well, too. We're going to take 30 and talk baseball. Shohei Ohtani had a tough time getting to the Coliseum yesterday. The Dodgers dominate the Giants again. They've only got 3 more games against them. And then a lot of other good series going on this weekend. The Red Sox Marlins and the Cardinals Diamondbacks. A lot of other good series going on this weekend as we get to through month 2 of the Major League Baseball season. Back in 30 with the Make the Money and Run podcast for Friday, May 28th, 2021. Vasu Vaddiparty, Casey Freelove here. Charlie O on assignment. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast for Friday, May 28th, 2021. Friday and the Memorial Day weekend coming up. We hope everybody has a safe and sound holiday weekend after the last couple of years. It'll be good to have a Memorial Day weekend going on. You can catch us every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays at 4:15 Eastern. Thanks to everybody on Facebook, including Vince Giorcello. How are you? Lori, thank you again. And then Robbie, of course, thank you very much for the kind words. Download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast, especially if you miss our pick segment. We talked NBA basketball. I want to throw one hockey note in here real quick before we get to baseball because it's going to be very interesting tonight. I love NHL hockey. I know Casey doesn't follow it a lot. California has the Sharks. There's always a core group of fans of hockey in California because a lot of them are all transplanted from other states. So I followed hockey ever since I was a kid in Southern California. I was born in Chicago. My neighbors were Canadian. So I learned hockey in the mid-'70s at an early age, even though I didn't know anything about it. But when the Sharks came in, I had to convince my friends that hockey is great to see live. And then their first thought was, now they've got season tickets, and now they're all experts at asking me why coaches are making third-line changes. I'm going like, what are you talking about? I'm like, are you kidding me? You didn't even know what offsides or icing was 20 years ago when the Sharks came in. But now they're doing well, and now they know how to throw opinions out, just like every other fan base and every other sport. Very interesting tonight. The Las Vegas Golden Knights had a 3-1 series lead against the Minnesota Wild. 5 is the total. 175 is what Las Vegas is favored by. They lost Game 5 at home. They went back to Minnesota for Game 6. The Wild won, and they forced what is the best thing in sports, pick a sport, any sport, a Game 7 in the NHL. Now, why is Game 7 in the NHL a lot more exciting than any other sport? Because it's sudden death. And you turn the TV on, you cannot. It's like watching a car crash or seeing a movie you haven't seen. It's a remote drop. You watch Game 7 because in a blink of an eye, anything can happen in overtime. Your Las Vegas Knights, Casey, I know you don't watch a lot of them, but boy, 3-3, kind of surprising that Minnesota kept up with them. But the question is not who's going to win, Casey, because I'm not going to ask you that. Obviously, you're rooting for the Knights. But if you see the game and they're in the third period, are you going to watch for a few minutes?
Yeah, I certainly will. And I've got a lot of love for the Knights because, I've been to the building. This is pre-COVID, of course. There's nothing like being on the Las Vegas Strip watching professional sports, man. You can't beat that pregame. They've got an amazing setup there by the old Monte Carlo. They've got kind of a plaza where you can hang out. They've got outdoor beer gardens and stuff. It's really a joy to attend a hockey game down there. And their fans are very passionate and knowledgeable. Much like when San Jose came into the league, I think you pointed it out.
Transplants
everywhere in Las Vegas, right? You've got guys that are from the East Coast, a lot of guys from the Midwest, and they really like their hockey. And the Knights have done well. My one angle from the gambling side I want to get your take on, I'm looking at the future board. If you want to go, you can bet these future bets right now. The Knights are only a -175, -180 favorite in the game. But if you're betting futures to win the whole thing, Vegas is still only getting you back 10-1. They're the 6th choice on the board right now. Meanwhile, the Minnesota Wild, who have a chance to eliminate them tonight, are 30-1. Talk about a lack of respect for a team, Vasu.
It's going to be interesting. And can you imagine a Friday night Game 7 in Las Vegas with the sports book on a pre-Memorial Day weekend that people are already going to? You went to school there. You work there. You know the town. I can only imagine. It's not even the Strip. it's right by the Strip where the T-Mobile Arena is. But can you imagine that plaza and how packed that's going to be? It's right by the New York. On the other side, for those that know the area, and obviously the transplants that live there, that are visiting there on a holiday weekend, which is always a big weekend now that people are coming back. But Game 7 of a National Hockey League game in the playoffs. I saw the Sharks win in double overtime in Game 6 2 years ago when I was there on Easter weekend when it was a different scenario. But this is Game 7. It's going to be exciting. I'll be watching a little bit of it, certainly if it gets to the third period and it's tied. Unfortunately, I'll probably hit the button to the overtime and probably not turn it and miss about 5 innings of every other baseball game I'm supposed to watch because it's that exciting for me to watch NHL hockey. Vegas minus 175, Minnesota versus Minnesota, Game 7, 9 Eastern tonight. 5 is the total. And then, of course, Saturday, Game 6 of the Toronto-Montreal series. 185 Toronto with Joe Thornton, fan favorite here in the Bay Area. 185 versus Montreal. Toronto, 3-2 series lead. They may close that out as well.
Have we figured out what Canada is going to do as far as protocol in the next round? Because I know that you've got all these teams facing each other in Canada, but there's still a major quarantine going on in that country.
You know who we asked? We asked the Hustle and Grind people at Stables Media. Joe Madden, you watching the show? Send us a comment, send a text, send an email. Anybody in Canada watching us, mtmarpodcast@gmail.com, or type it up on Facebook right now. All right, 1-0 the Cubs in the bottom of the 7th inning. If you've seen this game, I don't know if you have it on TV there, the weather forecast, the technology said 50 degrees and 9 miles blowing in from center field. If you're watching that game, there is no way that is 9 miles an hour in the wind. The over-under was 6.5 to begin with Adbert Alzolay, the starting pitcher for the Cubs, and Victor Gutierrez, who pitched well for the Reds in his major league debut. A home run by David Bodie in the 5th, and that had to cut through the wind. If it was a fly ball, it was not going to go out. But 1-0 Cubs, bottom of the 7th inning. If you saw the promo earlier that I did, I told you the Cubs were the pick today. Still 1-0, still feeling good about it. The Reds offense struggling. No Joey Votto, no Mike Moustakas on that team. Sonny Gray pitched for the Reds yesterday. They got a win in Washington. They beat Strasburg in a 7-inning game. If you play a suspended game or a continuation of a game from the night before and that game goes 9 innings, is that really considered a doubleheader and you have to play 7 innings, Casey? Because that's what they did in the, quote, Game 2 of this Cincinnati-Washington series, which probably gives Cincinnati an advantage. They didn't have to use a lot of their bullpen because Sonny Gray pitched really well. But, yeah, Sonny Gray and the Reds coming in. It's still a battle in the NL Central. The Cubs playing well. They just came off a 4-game sweep against the Pirates. But let's get to the MLB notes here. The Dodgers won again last night against San Francisco 4-3. Max Muncy is becoming a big villain for Bay Area baseball fans here. Another home run, another stare down with Alex Wood, former teammates, and then launches one into right center. Dodgers have won 4 in a row against the Giants. That's going to be the difference down the stretch. San Diego and Houston have an interleague series. I'd be fascinated in Houston with that offense. Houston's pitching not that great. I'm not sold on LeMay yet, but what do you think about the series in San Diego and Houston, Casey?
Well, I'm going to have a play on it, and I think that the Astros are starting to feel feisty and starting to play better baseball. They're 16-10 at home. The Padres obviously have my respect. They're a very talented team, but they haven't hit that well against the kind of pitcher that Valdez is tonight. So I think Houston's in a good place there, and they've got to be motivated by their rowdy fans who basically got pummeled by the Dodger fans, literally and figuratively, back there a couple nights ago. Should be a good matchup. It's a good early season test, and who knows, maybe even a potential World Series matchup. Don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think the Astros haven't played their best baseball yet. They're still 5 games above 500, just a few back of the A's, and I think their best baseball is ahead. So this is actually a really good one as far as, what the public's thinking on this one. You've got Houston a minus 117. The consensus on it, a lot of people are with me on the Astros. 82% of the public cash in Vegas going on that. And then that total at over under 8 also intrigues me, Vasu, because you were talking about the potential to really explode by both these offenses. This one could be a fireworks kind of game. Maybe get your popcorn ready and hold on to it tight so nobody knocks it out of your hand.
It'll be interesting. San Diego, Houston, a big series, interleague series. Tell a lot about Houston in second place in the American League West. The Padres leading the National League West. Bad news for the Braves. Mike Soroka will not return this year for the Braves. The ace of the staff had 1 game last year in the 2020 season, and then had to go on the IL, and then he has not pitched this year at all. Giancarlo Stanton coming back for the Yankees, who have been hot and cold. They split a doubleheader with the Blue Jays yesterday. Boston, St. Louis, Tampa, all hot. How about the Tampa Bay Rays, Casey, before we get to the games itself? Plus 55 in run differential. They're 9-1 their last 10. 11 out of 12. They won 2 in a row. The Kansas City Royals, of all teams, stopped their 10-game winning streak on Tuesday with a 2-1 victory in Tampa. They're even in the loss column with Boston, 1 game ahead of the Yankees in the loss column. And then Toronto has lost 1 in a row. The second game of the doubleheader they lost. They're above 500. All 4 of those teams are plus 31 or greater. The Rays plus 55, Boston 49, plus 31. The White Sox 1 game up on Cleveland. They're plus 73. The A's are still minus 6 in the West. Houston plus 55. They're even in the loss column. The A's had a tough series with the Mariners, and now Houston, as we said, hosts San Diego. Oakland has to face Ohtani. Why does Ohtani pitch tonight when he was supposed to be scheduled yesterday? For those of us that live in the Bay Area, that know the Bay Area rapid transit, Casey, I'm not sure how familiar you are with Bart being in Sacramento, but it's still public transportation. All the visiting teams stay in San Francisco. They don't stay in Oakland anymore. So Shohei Ohtani was supposed to start yesterday and then possibly start against the Giants, since they're going to stay in San Francisco for 6 days and play the Giants. Well, apparently the Bay Bridge had a big accident, which is not uncommon pre-COVID times, but apparently still happens. The Bay Bridge had an accident. So I don't know where he was, but apparently he got out of his car and took Bart. And I guess he has a translator. I don't even know how much English he speaks to begin with, but he must have had a translator and got on Bart. And I don't know where he ended up, but he didn't get to the ballpark till 1 hour before the game started. So Joe Maddon had to push the start back from yesterday to today. He's going to pitch against Sean Manaea tonight. And what an interesting scenario. It's the cover of Major League MLB.com story. I didn't realize it was that big of a story that a pitcher missed a start, but I guess the circumstances make it different. And for those of you that don't live in the Bay Area, that don't understand, think of it as the subway system or the L train in Chicago or any mass transit system. I think you guys have a public transit system that goes back and forth in Sacramento as well too on what they call light rail trains. So I'm sure it's an interesting scenario. Now it's a foreigner coming in from Japan without his teammates coming in on the BART system to go in and then end up having to miss the start case. By the way, I didn't know this. I don't know if you knew this. Starting pitchers don't travel with the rest of the team. They're on the last bus all the time because of COVID situations. That is news to me. So he was on the last bus on which he got off and took BART with whoever he was with to get to the Coliseum. Interesting story, huh, Casey?
Yeah, and even if I didn't know Bart's got jokes. Go to at SF Bart on Twitter if you want to see a funny exchange trying to explain exactly the timeline as far as him leaving the bus, getting to the BART. A BART employee said that there was delays on the BART as well. Bart saying, actually, no, he's completely wrong. The reason that Ohtani didn't start is because, as Joe Maddon pointed out, he likes to get out there on the field many hours before the game. He's most comfortable getting there around 4 o'clock for a 6:40 first pitch. So I get it. I mean, you're a former college pitcher and a guy who's pitched a lot in his life. The routine of a pitcher is very important. I mean, whether it's weird stuff like having a certain meal or wearing the same stupid socks for like 2 weeks or whatever, there's a lot that goes into it. These are some very superstitious guys. So, I mean, the Angels probably would have had a good chance to win, but Chris Bassett pitched a gem, by the way. We can talk about that later. But I think that Ohtani's going to be ready to go tonight. And also because you've got a large Asian population down there, it's probably going to be packed with some Angels fans as well. Not like the A's have never, had other teams kind of take over their stadium. Yes, they have many, many times that I've been there. But I'm excited about this one tonight. And I'm positive, no matter whether you're watching the broadcast from the Los Angeles feed or from Glenn Kuiper and the A's, they're going to have jokes as well about Bart and Ohtani and trying to get around the Bay Area here in this post-COVID landscape.
It's going to be interesting. All right, let's talk a little Dodgers baseball here. They've obviously taken the first 4 of the 7. They play each other 19 times. They get people in the San Francisco area that have been getting on me all year before last week's series. It's been a lot of cricket sounding type people on Facebook and social media. They play 15 more times after, or 14 more times after tonight. So I don't think the Dodgers are going to go 19-0 against them. But if they do, that's going to hurt their division chances for sure come September and October. But how about the Dodgers? I think they've got a plan in place. David Price went 2 2/3 innings. Dave Roberts pulled him out exactly at 35 pitches without even pitching to Alex Wood, the pitcher, who he probably would have gotten out and would have had 3 perfect innings. But that was very interesting. They took him out at 35 pitches, and then Vesia came in, had a rough start, but they were able to get out of it. And then Donovan Solano, who was back off the injured list for the Giants, tied the game up later at 3-3 before Muncy hit the game-winning shot in the 6th inning to give the Dodgers the 4-3 victory. Walker Buehler goes tonight against a resurgent Anthony DeSclafani. The last time he faced the Dodgers was the 9-run inning he gave up on Sunday, but he's been good overall for the year as this Giants team has been good. I totally have a lot of respect for the Giants. I'll be there in LA on Saturday to watch the game for Saturday Night Baseball, but I'm interested to see how the Giants react to the first 4 being lost to the Dodgers so far in this NL West rivalry showdown.
Well, the part of the problem, too, if you're a Giants fan, is this isn't even close to what the Dodgers have potential as far as offense. They've dealt with so many injuries early on in the season. They're still getting great pitching, and they're really surging. I think they've won like I think it's 15 out of 17 overall. I mean, they're playing fantastic baseball. We knew they would. I think we both have been joking about the fact that over under 106 might have been a little bit of a farce in the preseason, but they're certainly a team that's capable of winning, in the mid 90s, I would say, if they play their best baseball. So I think if you're a Giants fan, you got to be a little bit deflated, even though you're playing good baseball. They're kind of like Dogecoin. Like people were really, really buying, and it shot right up. And now it's kind of hit that dip, as they say. So if you're a Giants fan, are you buying the dip, or are you going to keep riding LA? Look, both of us know, even when the worst team plays the best team, the worst team is going to win at least 1 or 2 games over the course of the season. Think back to years past when it was like the Yankees beating up on the Orioles. They'd always have some weird day where they'd come in and one of their rookies from AAA would come up and pitch a gem of a game. Now, the Giants are a much better team than that. They've surprised the hell out of me. I didn't have them as the second place team in the NL West at this point in the season. I figured they'd be in third and maybe competing for a playoff spot, but probably not. I think we've discussed on this show a little bit why they're doing it, because they've had a lot of veterans step up and play well. Surprisingly good starting pitching from some guys who maybe you didn't think were going to be that good. But again, I go back to the original thing. LA is even better than they're playing right now, and they're beating the Giants like this in different ways. Muncy with the huge hit. I just feel like they're a team that has their number this year. And I know that my friends that all live around me here in Sacramento and San Francisco hate hearing that, and they know I'm not a Giants fan. I'm an A's guy. But I'm just looking at the eye test thus far, and the Dodgers have passed with flying colors.
Colorado, Pittsburgh, John Gray, Mitch Keller. Washington with John Lester against Brett Anderson. Atlanta, a road favorite with Ian Anderson and Taijuan Walker for the New York Mets. Mets have been injured. Their offense very much in the struggles. Ask Jacob deGrom, but apparently it's hit the other pitching staffs as well, too. Dominic Smith is your cleanup hitter, and Pete Alonso on the injured list, so that's bad for the Mets. But they are in first place still. Arizona behind a resurgent Bumgarner against Oviedo. 132, 9.5. A first place St. Louis team not getting any respect again. Might have to look at St. Louis tonight. We talked about Walker Buehler and DeSclafani. Your takes on the National League, Casey?
Yeah, real quick, the Mets, they just announced that game has been moved to tomorrow, perhaps, with a doubleheader. They've got another rainout. This team has dealt with a ton of them. 5 rainouts, 1 snowout, and 1 game suspended due to rain, and 3 COVID postponements. So the Mets have played less games than anybody. That puts them in a bit of a precarious position, and we'll see if it's the same pitching matchup when we get to it tomorrow. Cardinals, Diamondbacks, look, Madison Bumgarner, after a rough start, he's pitching pretty decently. I know he's got a bit of a high ERA, but he's going against Oviedo, who's 0-2 with a 5.7. So the total in this game is the highest on the board tonight at 9.5. Arizona, slight minus 135 favorite there. I think that's one that I probably could talk myself into getting in on the over in that particular contest. And there's a lot of kind of, it's not the best weekend ever as far as matchups. By the way, Cubs still leading 1-0, bottom 8 against the Reds. But there are teams that I have not had a chance to look at real close. I'll probably keep an eye on the Blue Jays and Indians series this weekend. The NL East is very wild. I know you opened by starting talking about those Tampa Bay Rays. They're just amazing, man. I mean, this organization is class. They know what they're doing. They lose 2 of their best pitchers. They're still in first place in the AL East, and there's no reason to think they're not going to remain competitive. I did want to get your thoughts, though, on where we sit with the New York Yankees. Garrett Cole, obviously a massive favorite, too big to bet on at minus 260 today in Detroit. But they're starting to piece together a little better now. They're 8 games over. You talked about their run differential, and they do have a 14-10 away record. So I think they'll probably take their pound of flesh out of Detroit this weekend. And they're another team we're going to have to keep an eye on here as we, creep towards the, we're past the quarter point now. Now we can start looking towards All-Star Weekend.
Yankees playing better defense, which is surprising because they're known for their offense. Interesting games this weekend. I want to see if Washington can make it back in the NL East race. Atlanta's starting to play well. They're the second team that's plus minus in the plus column in run differential now, as opposed to along with the Miami Marlins, who are still in the plus ratio. They had a tough game against Philadelphia last night, but I'll be interested, obviously, in the Dodgers-Giants game. Milwaukee, Washington interests me. Arizona, St. Louis. St. Louis playing better. And then New York and Atlanta has always been a rivalry ever since the Chipper Jones days, and even before that. 151, a road favorite. Oh, that game's postponed tonight anyway, but I'm still interested to see how that would be tomorrow in a 7-inning game, because I think that's a little disrespect for the first place NL East team. All right, we move on to the American League. Vasu Vaddiparty, Casey Freelove here. Make the Money and Run podcast. Toronto, Cleveland. Hanji Ryu goes against Eli Morgan making his debut. You talked about Garrett Cole against the Tigers, 250 and 7. Minnesota, Randy Dobnak Minnesota won 4 in a row. They're better. They're playing better than they did to start the year, but we thought they were going to be a competitor in the AL Central, and they still could be. It's only May 28th. White Sox behind Dallas Keuchel, plus 73 in the run differential, going up against Matt Harvey, who started off pretty well. The Baltimore Orioles did. They've slipped a little bit, 8.5 the total at Guaranteed Rate Field tonight. We talked the A's Angels a little bit, 145 for Manaea, 7.5. Mike Trout, I don't know what the time frame for Mike Trout coming back, but obviously Ohtani's going to pitch tonight, but he's not going to hit either. So you may want to look at that from a total. He's not going to hit tonight for some reason. 7.5 the total there. And then the Seattle Mariners and the Texas Rangers. A friend of mine is in Seattle right now. Says the weather's about 50 degrees and it's a little drizzly. That's like saying it's sunny and 75 in San Diego every day. So we just go with how it goes in Seattle. But 8.5 seems like a lot for night games in Seattle. So American League takes, Casey, as we hit the 45-minute mark here on the show.
Well, you kind of bummed as an A's fan that you only get to see him pitch, but what a magnificent player he is. I'm just excited to be able to watch that game with Ohtani on the mound. And Manaea's done pretty well. I mean, 3-2, 4.17 ERA. The story of this game and the story of the A's season thus far is bombing the ball against teams you should beat. And I know you could speak to this. There are a lot of teams that we've seen this year that are not beating the teams they're supposed to. They're getting wins against quality clubs, but you've got to take advantage when you've got a division that's not that great. I'm speaking about the A's. You should beat the Angels. You should beat the Rangers. You should beat the Mariners, because God knows you have your trouble against the Houston Astros. They're literally just a fly in the ointment of that organization. So Manaea against Ohtani tonight, I think, will be a good one. That total, that's a good line, too. They got you just thrown off a little bit. If it was at 8, you might think, all right, I'm going to go under. Then no, we're going to put it at 7.5 and guarantee that we get money as a casino one way or the other. And as far as what the public's thinking on that, let me pull up the A's here if I can find it. Well, I'm not seeing it right off the bat, but I would guess that people are probably going to shade that one to the under. The Toronto-Cleveland matchup, 74% of the cash on the Blue Jays, probably because people know who Ryu is and they don't know anything about the Cleveland pitcher. But sometimes you can find opportunities when those rookies come in, because as we talked about over the course of this season, advantage pitchers right now, we've seen it. I mean, baseball is like, what the hell are we going to do about these dead balls and no hitters and all these low-scoring games? So maybe there's an opportunity for this young buck to step in and pick up a victory. And as far as, again, public money is crazy. 94% of the cash on the White Sox, minus 215. I cannot be betting point spreads that are over 200, Vasu. If I'm looking at that, I got to go run line if I'm going to be playing around with the White Sox, who should be able to take the series against Baltimore, probably.
By the way, for future reference, if you happen to come across a game where you get inside information about a pitcher that's not going to be able to make a start, you can always unlist the pitchers. We tell you to list the pitchers. But yesterday, once we found out about Ohtani before the line went off the board and was rebranded on another number, you could have taken Ohtani off the board if you knew it in advance that he was having trouble getting there. Somebody on BART should have called somebody and said, hey, Ohtani's late for a start. He's not going to start. So take the Angels with action and take the A's with the pitcher. That happened to me one time before when I was hanging out with somebody about 20 years ago, where I knew he was not going to make a start the next day. So I unlisted him and ended up getting the win because he did not start, and it would have been no action. So a little inside baseball knowledge there as we go. All right, we're gonna take 30 here. We're gonna come back with a little potpourri. Julio Jones trade news. Aaron Rodgers still doing it. A kicker calls it a career, and Tim Tebow is drawing dollars. We'll tell you how he's doing that when we come back in 30. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast for Friday, May 28th. Happy Memorial Day to everybody out there. Welcome back. Make the Money and Run podcast, Friday, May 28th. Facebook Live, YouTube Live. If you missed any of the live broadcasts, we're going to get to our picks in a couple of minutes here. We talked Major League Baseball. We talked the NBA, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs as well. Casey Freelove is here. Charlie O on assignment. I am Vasu Vaddiparty. You can reach us Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays anywhere you subscribe your podcasts. All right, let's get to it here, Casey. We did all the nuts and bolts of sports this weekend with a review, the preview of all the nuts and bolts going on. Let's get to a little potpourri here because we know the NFL will always have news. Julio Jones gets on a phone call. I don't know if he was on TV or not, or if he knew he was on TV or not with Shannon Sharpe the other day, and he says he's out of Atlanta. So the trade rumors are coming in fast and furious for Julio Jones. One, who wouldn't want Julio Jones, Casey? But what would you give up for Julio Jones? I guess it would depend on what team you are.
Well, let's go right to the brass tacks and the odds. As far as what DraftKings had it up, I believe they actually took it off the board today, but the last check, the Patriots are actually in the favorite at plus 450. Now, this again, the way that this wager works is what team will he take his first snap with this season? So you could have actually bet the Falcons before Shannon Sharpe ruined that whole thing and got himself in a little trouble. The Rams and Titans are both 5-1. Jaguars, Chargers, and 49ers all at 9-1. So those are the teams that are kind of the favorite. And I think, not to go too deep behind the curtain, but if you want to, folks at home, head over to Google and see what your team has as far as draft picks in this year's draft and next year's draft. That will help you determine who's going to have the ability to give up the first rounder that I think Atlanta is going to command. Let's be honest. I know it seems like Julio's been doing it a while, Vasu, but don't you think this guy still has a lot of elite level all-pro football ahead of him? Because I certainly do. And I think a change of venue with a competent quarterback would really be good for him. And I like the Titans as far as on paper. Where would he be a great fit? I mean, they want him there. Derrick Henry's been clamoring for him. We all know Tannehill is no joke. The guy can play. That Miami thing was an abomination. He is a solid quarterback. And with Julio there, I mean, that really improves their chances of picking up victories. And with the Patriots being the favorite, look, Belichick knows what he's doing. And that guy has so many darn draft picks that he could probably find a way to package it and not even hurt the Patriots' chances moving forward. A team that I have said will still be competitive in this East. I'm not just handing it over to the Buffalo Bills. I think that Belichick's a good enough coach. The fact that they're getting all these guys back post-COVID, you throw Julio Jones in there, and you really perk up the interest from the fans there in Massachusetts.
Well, the Patriots always come up in situations like this. I mean, they always end up with guys that you can't believe that they ended up with. Julio Jones is still an elite receiver. I watched him play against the Niners 2 years ago when they upset the NFC champion 49ers in Santa Clara with the game-winning touchdown. He's still an elite receiver. Their offense is not the problem. Matt Ryan is actually still really good. I think Matt Ryan's a good quarterback. He may not be a top 5 quarterback or a top 3 quarterback, but his yardage is there, his interceptions. He's just in a situation where he doesn't get protected. He throws interceptions. So I'll be interested to see. I know Kyle Shanahan is very interested in talking to him. A.J. Brown actually left him a voicemail or sent him an Instagram saying, I don't mind being number 2. Come in, and when you're tired, I'll take the slack up. So A.J. Brown doing his best recruiting as well, too. So Julio Jones trade rumors. You got a pick on who he might go? Early odds pick that you like where to see him go?
I think the Titans will find a way to do it. I need to check their draft board for next year because I don't know where they're going to be slotted with as many players. But I think he's a perfect fit there. My oddball long shot would be the Jaguars. And the reason why is the Falcons are like, okay, you don't want to play here? We'll ship your ass to the worst team in the NFL, and you can go play with a rookie quarterback. That's what you get. And that's the business of football, Vasu. I mean, they love you till they hate you. The second you're out the door, they start burning your jerseys and acting like morons, even though you contributed to so many good football games for them.
I think after last year, I think the 49ers are definitely in the situation where they're going to go after him because Kyle Shanahan knows him very well.
Yeah.
For years, he was going after Cousins and he was going after guys like that he had coached before. So I think that would be a good fit, especially when you got not yet star receivers in Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. I think he would definitely stabilize the wide receiver room. All right, let's talk a little Aaron Rodgers, like 1 minute here because his name is all over the place. Jeopardy and all this and all the stuff he does off the field and the stuff he's doing up past your way up there in Paradise and Chico, where he's from, with the small businesses and everything that goes on with him. He's a good guy. I never had anything against him. He is a good guy. He's a 15-year veteran. He's allowed to have his opinion on certain things, but the news keeps going between him and the general manager and the Packers. And that's in case anybody doesn't know, unless you're not from planet Earth, the Green Bay Packers and their fans are very synonymous with each other. That's basically it in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So here's Aaron Rodgers, your longtime quarterback. Same thing happened with Favre as well, too. When they were bringing him in, Jordan Love, he says he has a good relationship with Jordan Love, and I believe him because I think he's a good teammate. But I can see somebody going after Aaron Rodgers this offseason. I don't know where it would be. I would think all of the 31 teams would be very interested in him, regardless of who they have. But whether they use him or not, that's a separate situation. One sentence on your thought on Aaron Rodgers, Casey.
Well, by the way, there's only 30 teams that would want him. There's one team that doesn't need him. They're the world
Green Bay,
champions.
right.
Maybe two teams, but anyway. All right, my one sentence look, the Packers are still the favorite for where he's going to be playing next year. I don't think if he goes to Denver, they are built up enough to be able to dethrone the Chiefs and find their way into a high enough playoff seed to win the Super Bowl. The Raiders seems like a bit of a pipe dream. I know it's glitz and glamour down there in Las Vegas. And why not just throw the 49ers into the shuffle for every available player, Vasu, and have some fun with it, because he is, of course, from Northern California and he wouldn't mind coming home. I think at this point, it's a little more bluster than actual substance, and I feel that he's going to be under center in green and gold when the season starts.
All right, last couple here real quick before we get to picks. Tebow's drawing prop bet dollars. Tim Tebow has signed a contract with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Over under 2.5 touchdowns. Without going into a long detail because he hasn't made the team, you think if he makes the roster, he'll get over 2.5 touchdowns, Casey?
I do, because the Taysom Hill factor. And it doesn't matter how he gets the touchdowns, right? It's just him scoring 2 touchdowns. So he could be rolling out, in a wildcat, throw the ball in the end zone. There's one. You only need that to happen 3 times over the course of the year. And by the way, the gun show has come to Jacksonville. My goodness, you see those pictures of him yesterday?
Yes.
He's not looking like a quarterback anymore.
He keeps himself in shape. There's no doubt about it.
I get the fascination with Tebow because he was everybody's All-American throughout the 2000s, when he did his thing at Florida. But I don't know if a guy that's 6 years removed from playing the toughest game on planet Earth is ready to go in there and really do anything.
Let's get a feel-good story here before we get to picks here. Chancellor Lee Adams, about to graduate high school on June 5th. 21-year-old Chancellor Lee Adams. I don't know if you saw this story, Casey. He is the son of Sharika Adams, who was killed 21 years ago. Ray Caruth is his dad. Those that remember Ray Caruth from the Colorado Buffaloes and the Carolina Panthers, he was accused of murder for trying to kill his baby. The mom, Sharika Adams, died. He is 21. He's got cerebral palsy, and he's got permanent brain damage. He's 21 years old. He got started late in life in terms of school, but a big accomplishment on this Memorial Day weekend for good stories that he is going to graduate from high school on June 5th. Good story, Chancellor Lee Adams, to end the potpourri section on Casey.
100% agree. Ray Caruth is one of the more infamous people in the history of Sacramento because he played high school football here before heading to Colorado and then going to the Carolina Panthers. I'm just happy for the young man. It's good to see a smiling face as we get ready for the weekend. And man, that was just a really disgusting thing that happened there. And I'm just happy to see this guy.
Yeah, I said the story. We got to include it. It's about a happy time considering the year we've had, and good for him for sticking to it and getting through the high school. Unfortunately, his mom was killed by that animal 21 years ago, Ray Caruth. All right, pick segment. Still unsponsored, but here we go into Memorial Day weekend. Go ahead, Casey.
I think the Astros are on the way up. I'm buying them at, I didn't put that money on there. It's minus 115 if you want to get in on it. It's basically a pick 'em against the Padres. I think the Astros come through tonight. And in this game, I'm not worried about BART systems. You can list the pitchers. That's fine with me. Knicks, Hawks, I'm playing on the nerves thing and just the toughness of having to be at home in the first game of the playoffs. First half under 107.5. And that's a weird one because the total's at 211. So if I do the quick math, I guess they're thinking the first half's going to be a higher score. Last one, homer pick, 100%. Viva Los Golden Knights. Let's go Vegas. Eliminate the Wild. Send them home and get on to the next round where we want to see you continue to make our run towards the cup.
Big hockey night for Casey if Casey's picking hockey tonight on the show. So 180 for the Golden Knights. All right, my picks in the last minute here, including Saturday's picks as well, too. Going with the Dodgers, 195 till the Giants beat them. Walker Buehler, the ace of the staff. Randy Dobnak and the Twins, they've won 4 in a row. They've got the Kansas City Royals tonight, 162 on the odds. Texas, Seattle, I like under 7.5. I think that's 8.5. I put a mistake on there. I think it's 8.5 for Seattle, Texas, which makes me even happier now that I made the mistake in my favor. San Diego, Houston, over 8. Dallas plus 2.5. They're up 2 games to none in the series. Where's the love, bookmakers, on the LA Clippers? Dallas, the home dog, up 2-0 in the series, plus 2.5. The Knicks, I'm going to go with the Knicks plus 5 tonight. And I, too, am going to take the Las Vegas Knights at minus 175. NBA on Saturday, Memphis plus 5 at home against Utah. Denver plus 4. I'm looking for them to go 3 up on Portland. They cannot stop Jokic. And Falco Campazzo, Milwaukee, Miami, over 221. Miami might get the victory. A gentleman's sweep, 3 games to 1, but the over 221 seems to be the play in that game. One update, the Cubs are 1 out away from a victory, 1-0 over Cincinnati. to the Cincinnati Reds, to the Chicago Cubs. All right, you can catch us every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. We'll let you know about Memorial Day Monday. We might move that to Tuesday, but stay tuned to our social pages. You can get to us on email at mtmarpodcast@gmail.com. You can get to our social pages on Facebook, Instagram. We also have a Make the Money and Run Facebook page as well. Check out Stables Media, as we are powered by them as well. Charlie O off this weekend. Casey, have a great Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, you too. Everybody out there, stay safe and, keep it sober or call Uber or Lyft now that we're back out in society.
All right. For Casey Freelove, Charlie on assignment, I'm Vasu Vaddiparty. This is the Make the Money and Run podcast for May 28th, 2022. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. Be safe, be happy, be healthy. Enjoy your bets. Good luck on the games. As always, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week for Make the Money. Have a good weekend, everybody. Take care.